S&P took us for a wild ride today. Came down on GDP news. GDP came in at 3.2% versus 2.9%. Core PCE prices came in at 4.7%. PCE core index is released tomorrow at 8:30, and everybody will be watching that. And then as the day continued, 10 o'clock, we had the U.S. leading index. This is not something that we see a lot of people paying attention to, but it was so far off and negative that it actually increased the selling of the index. Whether or not we get that Santa rally is still open for debate. We have now tested this support line twice. We blew right through it this morning, and here we are. Now we're back exactly where we need to be. If you take a look at the low, we didn't really get through that low, and we're hanging right in there. And this is exactly what you want to see. So you're not really breaking down, and you came right through it. Subscribe to the channel, click all notifications. We give timely updates and post in our community tab. So there are actual updates during the day that you only see if you are subscribed. It helps you stay in contact with what's going on during the day. Now, here's our level, and we held. Tested, rallied, tested. Now we have a long-legged doji here. If we take a look at the Bollinger Bands, just to get an understanding of where we are, you can see how far out of the realm we came today. We came out and we snapped back in. We came out and we snapped back in. This should not be remiss. You should not just disregard this. Usually when this happens, we get a retest of the 21. This is the mean, and the mean is the 21 SMA. Now, this provided a perfect entry right off the open. I'm using a 5-minute chart. You can see that straight down. And from there, it was a pretty easy day. I mean, riding along, you're forming bear flags, you're breaking down, you're forming bear flags, and you're constantly breaking support levels. You were never really above VWAP the whole day. And then down here, it gave us a signal, and we wound up closing the short positions on that signal. For me, the first thing I was really looking for to close it all was just a very simple higher high, and that higher high kicked in right here. I appreciate your comments on these videos, and keep them coming. We are going to start showing more actual live trades, and I will be doing a trading journal with a smaller account. And that way people can follow along. I think it's a great way for people to learn. And the reason I'm bringing that up is your comments. So please comment. I do read them all and I do respond. The whole purpose of this is to educate and inform. So here we are, we broke down. There's our level. Breaks down, rallies, boom. So this was a real good sign for me. And when I saw that, that was enough. I was riding the second down the whole way. I use second standard deviations. The reason for that is I just want to see where I'm at. It doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not going to sell because I'm here. But if I'm riding a second standard deviation on the way down and then I start to gravitate more towards the mean, you want to pay attention. I don't really want to get out because I'm near it. But if I start gravitating more towards VWAP, you want to pay attention to that. So it's just, think of it as guardrails. And then you can just see we flipped VWAP, got right over that 380, had every intention of not closing over, 1, 2, 3 down. Does a little bullish homing pigeon right there for those that have watched that video, and then lift it. This is the put-call ratio in equities. And you can see the reading that we had. We were just talking about this in Alpha Chasers. And what's interesting is this particular level. Right, so now you have a reading well over 2 on the put-call ratio, which is huge, which shows massive fear, which is kind of crazy considering where the VIX is. But if you go back and take a look at when we had readings that were this high, well, that is really around the 17th of December, 2018, and then also again in March 2020. Now, does this preclude that we're going to have some kind of Santa rally or, quote, the bottom is in? I have no idea, and quite frankly, nobody knows. But what's pertinent is you need to know that you have a signal that was the same signal that you got in this range and the same signal you got in this range. This takes weeks to develop. And I'm not so sure that we're going to have enough to develop. Reminder, we have PCE tomorrow. You need to be aware that you had a major outlier reading, and this is what happened. Tesla yesterday in great detail. It's one of the reasons why I always suggest that you watch these videos when they come out daily. They all kind of connect. So if you take a look at this and you write in this line, left shoulder, head, right shoulder, we walked through it all yesterday. I'm not going to bore everybody with it again. I want to hammer the point. This is not over. It's just beginning. Now, even the news today that they were pulling margin requirements or changing the margin requirements at a couple banks, that couldn't even lift it. As I stated yesterday, you never know when they're really going to break. And so yesterday we're testing it and we're trying to see if we're going to break this level, and we don't. We're trying again, seeing if we're going to break this level. And then of course you're not really going to want to stay short in here, right, going into GDP, because you just don't know. But then it just started giving us all kinds of signals. You can see how we rejected the doji here, rejected the low of the doji, straight down, 3-bar pattern, broke. And since then, it was just on all day long, providing opportunity after opportunity. These little rallies over with reversals, other spots to put shorts on. If they have a large move like this, they'll just stop and they'll say, oh, I missed it, right? And I don't want to get too into the mental aspects of trading, but that's a limiting belief. You didn't miss it, it's going down, and maybe there's a way that you could get into it. So maybe change that thought process to, I missed the initial move, is there another opportunity? Instead of saying, I missed it, I suck, okay? That little change will make you start looking for that opportunity. That's our little earthy lesson on mental trading for the day. Trade down, the news hits that they are going to do something with margin and restrict Tesla on margin. Stock rallies up on the news. Right in here, I actually wound up closing the position and tried a little bit of a long. Did not work. Cut it at the first sign and then held some into the end of the day and then just cut out the rest of it. The question is, what do you do now? This is not something that I could hold overnight. Now, I've been saying this for some time. Tesla can still go down and the market can still rally, right? High PE stocks can still come in and the market could still rally. You know, the money that we saw flowing into the market, the rallying today, we saw it going into FedEx today. We saw these kinds of moves happening today. That's really what we want to focus on. You actually even saw Netflix, which tried to break out. Now we're forming this, well, kind of wonky dragonfly, but I wouldn't rule this out yet. I would not rule that trade out, and that's still on my radar. Another one I went over yesterday was Crocs, and tomorrow's PCE is a train for me. So I will watch and see how we react to those numbers and then be more active in the pre-market. Just watch this 102.50 tomorrow. This was beautiful. This was not something I was going to play around with during the day, but it did give you a great little setup right here where you have the undercut. And once you flip that undercut, you have a double bottom position that is starting. You flip that double bottom right here, and then it just goes. And it was just beautiful. Went right back up, retested the high, closed at the high. So this should definitely be on your radar. It's certainly on my radar with the way that it acted today. BNTX was another one that has been on the radar. Now you're seeing it start to get over this wick and work its way back up. It's very telling when these stocks come down to these trend lines and then bounce. Down to the trend line and then bounce. Don't rule these out. There was one sector that was up today. One that finished green today. XBI, biotech. Here's our support line. We've been talking about this. This is our support line and we're holding right in there. Look at the close. We have a higher high close. Now, if you have a higher high close and the SPY is not at a higher high, then you have strong relative strength. I would start looking at these kinds of names. MDGL was one that we were talking about. That might look like the final blow off. Now, tomorrow, the preferred stock that they did actually goes live. So if you undercut right there, you might see more selling come in. That is a sign of exhaustion, that move right there. So if it undercuts here, you might see this complete. It's not a shooting star because of the positioning. I'd look at it more as a gravestone doji. If it was red, maybe we'd call it a shooting star. You know, splitting hairs. Measured move would be to come down and test that 246.58. So keep that on your radar as well. Do not rule out these trades. Do not rule these out. You know, these were all names that we looked at earlier, and we're seeing a specific pattern. These are the kinds of names you want to look for. You have a death cross, which is where the 50 is crossing the 200, and now you're getting a golden cross. If you start running a scan for these kinds of names, these should be your focal point because these are the strongest. To join Alpha Chasers, there is a link up here in the top right. It is currently on waitlist. Simply add your name to the list, and then when a spot opens up, you will be added. Please continue to comment. Your comments are what is getting me to create the new content, to start a live account and to show what some of the other things that we're doing. So I do read your comments and I do respond to every single one and I do appreciate them. Remember, don't be retail. Have a good night, everyone.